If you were to ask an RPG veteran to list their top 10 RPGs of all time, chances are that they would make a reference to Chrono Trigger. And why not? It was awesome and attracted a massive loyal following after its release in 1995. Just like Miley Cyrus's performance at the 2013 MTV Music Awards, Chrono Trigger was a tough act to follow. The act that did follow was Chrono Cross, and it followed with critical acclaim. The two games are really quite different. The developers at Squaresoft didn't want to simply reproduce another Chrono Trigger, so they instead took Chrono Cross in a completely new direction. What they created was a timeless classic that ticks just about every box. This is one of the strongest RPGs from that golden PS1 era, and if you like your traditional RPGs, then look no further than Chrono Cross. The story begins with young Serge, who sets out to retrieve some colourful scales for his girlfriend. Before you know it, BAM! Serge is sent to a parallel world in which he died 10 years ago. Naturally, he's bloody confused, so he sets out for answers. The direction that Chrono Cross takes with these two parallel dimensions is brilliant. The various differences between the worlds mean that certain things that can't be achieved in one world can be achieved in the other. For example, at one point, the only way to save an ally is to slay a Hydra for its humour. And no, I'm not talking about the jokes it makes. The Hydra is inconveniently extinct in one world, so you have to travel to the other world to gather this ingredient. This means that there is a lot of revisiting the same location multiple times in both dimensions. However, things are usually different enough between the two worlds to keep the experience fresh. The story starts pretty simple, but once the concepts of time travel come into the plot, things start to get really complicated. There is loads of depth here, and while Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross are not directly linked, playing both titles will give a greater understanding of the rich lore. Any good parent will go to the effort to spoon feed their babies, else they'll probably starve to death. Modern RPGs are a lot like good parents. They constantly spoon feed their players, holding their hand until the very end. Older JRPGs, Chrono Cross included, are like the parents who should be expecting a visit from the Department of Child Protection. They neglect their players, often providing no direction whatsoever. There were many instances in Chrono Cross where I had no idea what I should be doing. This is particularly evident in receiving the first good ending. If you can work that one out on your own, I applaud you. The gaming world loved Chrono Trigger's deep, memorable cast of characters. Marle, Frog, Magus. These characters have stuck in the minds of fans for the past 20 years. Chrono Cross took an entirely different approach to its characters and the roles that they play. Put simply, there's over 40 of them. No, not NPCs, 40 playable characters. That's just crazy. I love having the option to recruit the many optional characters and experimenting with them in battle. But of course, it comes at a cost, and this cost soon becomes crystal clear. Most of the characters have very little depth, especially when you compare them to the lead characters of Chrono Trigger. But hey, everything comes at a price, right? You could easily say that the graphics haven't aged particularly well over the years. However, if you were to say that the soundtrack hasn't aged well, I would literally stick your head so far up your ass that you would be wearing yourself as a hat. Yeah, just try me. This soundtrack has been critically acclaimed, and for good reason. There are so many amazing atmospheric tracks, some that have stuck with me for the past 15 years. Composer Yasunori Mitsuda should be praised by all, as few soundtracks have ever reached this outstanding level. The enemies that plague the region of El Nido are all visible on screen, and once you run into them, you'll enter a typical turn-based battle system. This gameplay is still unique after all these years, and that's highly commendable. Your characters begin with 7 stamina, which can be used to attack with a combination of weak, mid-strength or fierce attacks. Obviously, the fierce attacks are going to do more damage, however, they have a lower hit percentage and cost more stamina, so it's a risk-reward type system when it comes to physical attacks. One thing that frustrated me to no end is the amount of times I missed my enemies. Your hit percentage is actually displayed on screen, but I often found myself missing several times in a row with a percentage of over 70%. Something's not right here. You can also spend your stamina to cast a spell or unleash one of 3 unique character techniques. This is often a good way to end a chain of attacks. However, it will take some time to restore your stamina after doing so. For this reason, there's a surprising amount of strategy involved. The gameplay also has a heavy focus on elements, and this also requires major consideration. Each character has their own natural element. In battle, a fire-based character will have a greater defense against fire, attack with the fire element, and cast more damage with fire spells. The downside, they get their ass handed to them by water attacks. This makes it very worthwhile to use different characters depending on the enemies that you face. The elemental field effects are something else that you need to watch out for. The current elements of the environment is dictated by the last 3 elements that have been cast, which in turn increase or reduce the damage of future attacks of the associated element. Put simply, if there's a lot of red up there, then fire attacks will do more damage and water attacks will do less damage. This makes it so important to equip your characters with a range of elements so that they can effectively deal damage and help manipulate the field conditions to your advantage. Outside of battle, you can equip these spells to your character's grid. This can take quite a bit of time, especially later in the game when characters have unlocked loads of slots. This equipping system is fine, and the large variety of spells really allows you to personally customize your characters. However, when you change party members, you'll have to spend time allocating spells all over again. Yeah, there is an auto option, but this is never as effective as doing it yourself. I desperately wanted some sort of grid transfer option, but the sad truth is, no matter how long you spend customizing your grid for battle, you're going to kick ass. Chrono Cross has an awesome battle system, but it is way too easy, and most bosses can be defeated with little thought. This is one of the game's biggest flaws. Back in '99, New Game Plus was not a term you heard too often. In fact, it was Chrono Trigger that originally coined the term. It was only natural that Chrono Cross would follow suit, and there are plenty of reasons to play through the game a second time. Firstly, you can obtain additional characters. Secondly, you can manually increase and decrease the speed of the game, allowing you to complete battles in no time. But the main reason for replaying the game is the many different endings you encounter. You can take on the final boss at any point of your New Game Plus, and by defeating this boss at different times, you'll see different endings based on the events that have occurred at that point in time. This is awesome, and if there's a better incentive to ever replay a video game, I would love to know. Chrono Cross is a classic. It's just one of those games that you have to play if you enjoy RPGs from that era. The whole parallel world theme is awesome and sets up for a complex, engaging plot. The amount of characters that can be recruited is insane, even if they aren't as deep as its predecessor. The battle system is also brilliant and allows for a lot of customization and strategy. However, the challenge that the battles present was very disappointing. To me, the PS1 era was the time of the greatest RPGs ever, and Chrono Cross sits up there with the best. This was Hellfire RPGs, thanks for watching. If you liked this, like, subscribe, and check out some of my other videos. See you next time.